Hello bookish people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan. In today's video we are going to be doing my February 2023 book of the month predictions. I just can't believe we're already doing February book of the month predictions. Like January, where did it go? It flew by. I feel like people always say that about every month, every year. Like everyone's like, oh my god, time flies by so fast, but like it really does. It really does. But this morning we got the in-app hint for the February selections, and I feel like this one was pretty obvious what it was just based on like the cover art. So here is the in-app hint. It is like this red flower ordeal, and it looks very, very similar to the flowers on the cover of Maame by Jessica George. So this is a literary fiction book. In this book, you're following Maddie, who lives in London, and she is the primary caregiver to her father, who has advanced stage Parkinson's, and her mother spends a lot of time in Ghana. Well, her mother comes back from her latest trip, and she is taking care of her father, so Maddie decides that she is going to start living her life. She moves out of her parents' house, she finds her own place, she tries online dating, she pushes for more recognition in her career, she starts saying yes to after-work drinks with her coworkers, and she's just trying to live her life. So this is the in-app hint. That is the synopsis for the book. This is a literary fiction book. I'm not like a huge literary fiction person, but I feel like this will appeal to a lot of people, so there you go. Now we're going to move into our genres. I have a little bit of everything. We have mystery, thrillers, fantasy, romance. Although I looked at last February selections, and even though it's like a Valentine's Day month, there was no romance picks. You know, so we have, yes, mystery, thrillers, fantasy, romance, and then I have some more fiction predictions because you never know. I mean, they could have between 5 to 7 selections. So even though this is one of the selections, there could be another maybe contemporary fiction thrown in there. So we shall see. Oh, I also have historical fiction. Can't forget historical fiction. First, we're going to start with my favorite category, mystery thrillers. I feel like book of the month is always my go-to for picking out mystery thrillers. There's some really good ones that I have my eye on, specifically the ones I'm talking about. The very first one I've seen on so many people's book of the month prediction posts. I've seen all of this one plastered all over everybody's February, most anticipated releases, and that is The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. In this book, we're following Alex, who is an aspiring writer, or she is a writer, and she gets invited to this exclusive retreat put on by her favorite feminist horror novelist, and also her ex-best friend and rival has also been invited. Once they get to the retreat, the horror novelist tells them that they are going to spend the next month writing a complete novel, and whoever has the best complete novel at the end will get a 7-figure publishing deal. So first of all, everyone's kind of playing mind games with each other, and everyone's like, oh my god, I can't believe we have to write a whole novel in 30 days. Like, that is crazy. Who can do that? But then a snowstorm comes and one of the writers goes missing, and it just seems like something sinister is happening, and the house seems kind of haunted, and I am so excited for this book. This one just sounds so interesting to me. It'll definitely be one of my selections if Book of the Month picks it. If not, I'm going to be requesting my library to buy the audiobook because this is one I definitely need to read. The next mystery thriller prediction I have is The Angel Maker by Alex North. Now, Alex North is a repeat author. If this is a selection, it would be his third book with Book of the Month, but this does have a February 28th publishing date, so it's the last day of February, right? Is it going to be a February selection and it's kind of going to be a little bit of an early release, or is it going to be a March selection? We shall see. This is kind of my prediction for February and March. We'll just see which month it gets put in, or maybe it won't be picked at all because he's already had 2 books with Book of the Month. But the synopsis for this one, you're following Katie, and she has a brother named Chris, and they live a pretty good life growing up until Chris is attacked he is brutally attacked when he is a teenager, and Katie feels a lot of guilt over this. Fast forward to when they're adults, Katie gets a phone call one day saying that her brother has gone missing and he needs her help. Meanwhile, in another kind of subplot storyline going on, we have a detective, and he is investigating the murder of this professor, and his leads for this case point back to the brutal assault of Chris back in the day, and also to a notorious serial killer who claims to be able to see the future. Now, I have never read anything by Alex North, but I know his last book, The Whisper Man, got a ton of hype behind it. This has a really interesting synopsis, so it's one I'm also really interested in as well. But again, with the February 28th publishing date. I'm not really sure if it would actually be a February selection or not. And the last mystery thriller prediction that I have is actually the one I'm kind of like least excited about, so hopefully one of the other two is the picks, and that is Stone Cold Fox by Rachel Kohler Croft. So in this book, you're following our main character B, and growing up, her mother was a con artist and kind of taught her how to con and swindle men, but as an adult, B wants to leave that life, but kind of. She wants to get married to leave that life, but she wants to marry rich. So she has to win over the family and friends of Colin, who is the member of one of the wealthiest families in the country. So as she's trying to win over his friends and family, she goes toe-to-toe with his childhood best friend, Gail, and they kind of engage in a dangerous cat and mouse game, and her path threatens to bubble over the surface or get exposed, however you want to word it. Yeah, this one seems interesting. I don't know, the writing retreat, I'm just really hoping for that one because I really want to read it. But this one is a debut author. Book of the Month loves debut authors, so this could potentially be a pick. Now we're going to be moving on to the potential fantasy picks for this month. The first one is Stoneblind by Natalie Haynes. This is a Medusa retelling. I think it is like a feminist Medusa retelling. So in this book, you're following Medusa, and she is attacked by Poseidon, the god of the sea, the god of the sea, Poseidon, and Athene's temple. Athene is outraged by the violation of her space, but instead of condemning Poseidon, she decides to get revenge on Medusa, the victim, and she turns her hair into snakes and make it so whoever is in Medusa's gaze gets turned to stone. So feeling bad about killing everybody, she condemns her own self to a life of solitude, and one day Perseus decides he's going to go after Medusa's head. And that is kind of just the story of what it is about. I know she is a popular author. I can't remember what she's written off the top of my head, but I know she's done other Greek mythology retellings that I have seen all over the internet, all over Bookstagram, Booktube. So yes, this could be a potential pick. The next potential pick is Nocturne by Elisa Weiss, and this is described as a haunting and lyrical fantasy set in the 1930s. We're following our main character, Grace, and she dreams of becoming a ballerina, and she does become a ballerina, and it's not all it's cracked up to be, but while she is a ballerina performing, she attracts the attention of a mysterious patron. And the synopsis from there is pretty vague. It doesn't really tell you a lot about the plot, so it's probably one of those that's best to go in blind, but it has a stunning cover. It comes out in February, and again, book of the month, I feel like in 2022 really kind of upped their fantasy game, so I could definitely see them picking something like this. The last potential fantasy pick I chose is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi, and in this book you're following Indigo, and she gets married and they think they are going to have a happily ever after until one day her aunt gets sick and her and her husband have to return to her childhood home. While they're there, her husband starts to learn about her past, and that could be the end of their marriage and also the end of their lives. So honestly, it's really more pitched as a mystery thriller, but it is a fantasy, and this is one that I've seen a ton of buzz about. This book is pitched as Mexican Gothic meets The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Me personally, I don't really love Gothic tales. The Hacienda was a book of the month selection that was a Gothic story. I didn't really like it, but The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I do love that book. That is one of my all-time favorite books, so I might just have to read it because the synopsis blurb to this book, I might just have to read it. So we shall see. This is a standalone fantasy, and we shall see what fantasy selection, if any, will be in this month's picks. Now we're going to go over potential romance selections, but as I said earlier, there was no romance picks last February, but like, it's Valentine's Day. Like, come on, book of the month, you have to give us a romance book in the month of Valentine's Day. Like, what is this? Like, February to me is like my favorite month because I love pink. So Valentine's, it's not that I necessarily even love Valentine's Day. I just love all the Valentine's Day decor, and I go crazy because like anything pink, I'm like, yes, I need to buy this and decorate my house because I don't care. I'll have pink hearts around my house all year long. So I have 3 potential romance selections. The first one is called Just My Type by Fallon Ballard. In this book, you're following our main character, Lana, and she writes at this very trendy LA website, and she is a relationship columnist, and herself is a bit of a relationship hopper, but she decides she wants to stay single for a while, embrace being single, and learn how to live life on her own. Then enters Seth, her high school ex-boyfriend. He also gets hired at the website that she works for, and he is writing a series of articles about trying to settle down and be the perfect boyfriend. At the same time, she's embarking on this journey and writing a series of articles about how to be a single. Well, whoever has the most popular article series gets the most coveted spot on the website for their column. So this is a second chance romance. I wouldn't say enemies to lovers, but more rivals to lovers, and I'm very excited about this one. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And Fallon Ballard, I have seen, I've never read one of her books, but I know a lot of her romance books in the past have been hyped up, so I would be really interested to read one of her books. The next potential romance selection is The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. Now, this one has a publication date of February 28th, so again, it comes out like the very last day of the month, so I don't know that they would necessarily select this. But in this book, you're following our main character, Lily, and she works in the publishing world. She is an editor, and she just loves books. And she has been corresponding over email with her favorite fantasy author until one day he ghosts her. And then fast forward a couple months later, Lily's sister is getting married, and she needs a date to the wedding. So she enlists the help of her new neighbor to help her find a date for the wedding. But little does she know, her new neighbor is actually the fantasy author she was emailing a couple months previous. But she doesn't know because he writes under a pen name. And it just sounds like a really cute story. I love like romance books that have to do with books. Like, I love when a heroine is obsessed with books, or she works in the publishing world, or like just anything that's bookish inside of romance book. Like, absolutely love it. And yeah, I'm very excited to read this one. It's probably one I'll read regardless if it's a book of the month selection or not. So yeah, this one again comes out on the 28th. So will it be selection? Who knows? But I'm hopeful. And the last potential romance selection is for Twice in My Life by Annette Christie. So in this book, you're following our main character, Layla, and she meets Ian and they fall in love and they have a beautiful relationship, or so she thought, because one day out of the blue, he just randomly breaks up with her and she is shocked. She's like, what is going on here? But then a few days later, a hospital calls her saying that Ian has been in a biking accident and she needs to come take him home from the hospital because I guess he never changed her from his emergency contact. So when she goes to the hospital, she realizes that he has some sort of amnesia and he doesn't even remember breaking up with her. So she's like, okay, I'm gonna just play along with this and we're just gonna pretend we never broke up. But then his brother Matt comes into town and she was like, maybe I like Matt instead, but she can't be with him unless she comes clean about everything that happened. Honestly, the synopsis for this book basically just gives away the entire plot. But I mean, I guess it's a romance. There can be no spoilers. You're just along for the ride and along for loving the characters. But yeah, this is another one that sounds super interesting. Potential book of the month selection. There we go. Now we're going to be moving into general fiction. Again, Maame was a literary fiction pick, so I don't really know that we'll have another fiction pick. So these are just like ones that I thought could be potential picks before the in-app hint came out. So we're just going to go over them regardless because sometimes they will double up on genres, especially if they have more than 5 selections. So the first book is I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay, and she is a repeat author. Her last book came out in 2019 and it was a 2019 book of the month selection. So in this book, you're following our main character, Bodhi, and she went to a boarding school, high school, and her roommate was murdered, and one of the athletic coaches was arrested for her murder. So she just kind of wants to leave that all behind and not think about it again. Fast forward to when she is an adult, she is now a professor, and her old high school reaches out to her to have her teach a course at the school. So when she goes back, she kind of gets drawn back into the mystery. Did Omar really do it? Is there something more going on? And although this sounds like the plot to a mystery thriller story, it's being more marketed as a literary fiction a literary fiction book. So I think this is more just like an in-depth book of the crime and how we prosecute people versus just a like thriller, like, oh my god, who did it sort of thing. But regardless, it sounds really interesting, and yeah, so this could be a potential pick. This book in particular, I've seen a lot of buzz about, so this is one I feel like, regardless whether it's a book of the month pick, we'll be seeing a lot of people read this one. The next book I have in the fiction category is Someone Else's Shoes by Jojo Moyes. She is a very popular author, so maybe I could see this being an add-on versus a selection, but and she would also be a repeat author. She's had 2 books previously with book of the month, and in this book you're following our 2 main characters, Nisha and Sam. Now Nisha was living this rich and bougie life with her husband, being a rich and bougie housewife, until one day he divorces her and cuts her off. And so she goes to the gym with her gym bag and she puts her Louboutins in there, but then Sam accidentally takes her gym bag. Now Sam is kind of down on her luck and doesn't have a lot of money, and when she finds these Louboutins in the gym bag she accidentally took, she tries them on, and she has this overwhelming confidence. And then she decides that she needs to change her life. And so we're just kind of following these two main characters. Again, that's a pretty brief synopsis. It doesn't really go more in depth than that. And the page count is about 450. So we shall see what this book is about. I personally have never read anything by this author, but I think she just does contemporary fiction. So again, I could see this being potentially a pick because we have the literary fiction pick with Maame, and then we have this pick, which would be a contemporary fiction. Now we're moving into historical fiction category. I have two potential picks. Now I'm going to be upfront with you. I don't think I've ever correctly guessed a historical fiction pick, but to be fair, it's not my category, so I don't really read Book of the Month historical fiction picks, so it's hard for me to like guess which ones are there. I just predict them because, you know, they're always a historical fiction pick on Book of the Month, but I just want to let you know I have never guessed correctly, but I think this month could be the month because the first book I am predicting is The Porcelain Moon by Janie Chang, who is a repeat author. Her last book was published in 2020 and it was a Book of the Month selection. But in this novel, The Porcelain Moon, you're following our two main characters, Pauline and Camille, and it's set in the final days of World War I in Paris. So Pauline escapes her uncle's house because he is trying to get her into an arranged marriage back in Shanghai, and she does not want any part of that. So she enlists the help of her cousin, who finds her a room at Camille's house, and Camille is in an abusive marriage that she is trying to escape, and at the same time she is trying to end an affair that she is currently having, and it's just about the lives of these women and them coming together and forming a friendship. And yeah, it comes out, she's a repeat author, we shall see. And the last historical fiction pick I think could potentially be a selection is The Woman with the Cure by Lynn Cullen. So in this book, this is actually based on a true story. It takes place during the 1940s and 1950s, and we're following our main character Dorothy, and she is trying to find a cure for polio. And I mean, that's about it. That's what it's about. Who knows? Could be a pick. I feel like I could get I feel like pretty good about these selections. I feel like I could get the historical one right for once in my life, so we shall see. So those are all my February Book of the Month predictions for 2023. Now I do want to give a shout out for two books that I personally cannot wait to come out in February. Although I don't think they're going to be February like picks or anything. These are just two books that I'm personally like very excited for, and I pre-ordered both of them, and that is Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. I love Tessa Bailey. I love her TikTok. I haven't even read that many books by her. I think I've only read 2 books by her, but when I say I love her, it's just because I follow her on TikTok and she's hilarious. So this is coming out in 2023. I'd be so surprised if this was a Book of the Month selection. I really don't think it is, but I had to give a shout out because I pre-ordered it. And then another one is A Last Violent Call by Chloe Gong. These are the 2 novellas that follow Foul Lady Fortune, which was a Book of the Month selection. When did it come out? In September or November? So this was a Book of the Month selection. Now there's 2 novellas between this and the next novel. I doubt Book of the Month is going to carry her novellas, but if you did pick up Foul Lady Fortune from Book of the Month, I just wanted to give a shout out to these novellas in case you didn't know they were coming out and you wanted to read them. So yes, that are all my Book of the Month predictions, my 2 little shout outs, and I will see you guys in the next one. If you like bookish content, hauls, TBRs, wrap-ups, Book of the Month predictions, subscribe down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.